Hi, everyone. This is Linda G. Robert. You're back in the groove again, coach, helping you live your best life now so you can love what you do. Today, I am reading an excerpt from chapter 4. Again, I'm reading from Dr. W Dyer's Being in Balance, 9 Principles for Creating Habits to Match Your Desires. And today, chapter 4, your addictions tell you you'll never get enough of what you don't want. So here we go. And of course, he always starts with a quote. This is a hard quote to say. For a just man falleth 7 times and riseth up again. It's a proverb. Another quote he starts with, everything terrifying us, everything terrifying is in its deepest being something helpless that wants our help. Rainier Maria Rilke. If I were to rate the 9 habits discussed in this book, this one might get the prize for being the most unbelievable, spending our precious life energy chasing after something we don't want and never getting enough of whatever it is that we're relentlessly pursuing. Fortunately, this is one imbalance that's relatively easy to correct, despite all we've been told about the difficulties involved in conquering addictions. The concept of fighting and conquering addiction is the wrong approach. I believe that we need to begin by removing those words from our vocabulary. Martin Luther King Jr. once remarked that the only way to convert an enemy to a friend is through love, not hatred or fighting. We don't conquer anything, and there's nothing to fight. Consider the results we've achieved when we've tried to fight something in order to conquer it. For example, ever since war was declared on poverty, there's more of it in the world than ever. Our wars on drugs have only served to triple our prison population and bring illegal substances to more people at younger ages. As early as junior high school, there's hardly a child who doesn't know how to acquire all manner of drugs. Our wars on crime have resulted in more criminals, more fear, more surveillance, more distrust, and more abuse by law enforcement personnel. Our war on terror has turned us into people who behave towards those we label terrorists in ways that emulate the terrorism we're supposedly desirous of eliminating. When war was officially declared on Iraq, America became more hatred, and the number of people signing up to become suicide bombers multiplied dramatically. And our wars on cancer, obesity, and hunger have not eliminated those conditions either. Here's the reasoning behind what I've just elaborated. The truth of this universe is that we live in an energy system that operates on the law of attraction. That is, we become what we think about all day long. If we think about what we hate, this is an energy that we're offering to our desires. In this system, then, we'll attract more of what we think about. Consequently, more of what we hate is what we will attract. We act on our thoughts. Our thoughts of hate, violence, fighting, and war generate actions of hate, violence, war, and fighting. And lo and behold, we see the fruits of this thinking showing up even if our intentions are positively aligned with God energy. We get what we think about, whether we want it or not. Thoughts that translate into fighting and war almost always guarantee that the response is a counterforce. That is, others will respond in kind to our desire to fight and conquer. This kind of force, counterforce, can continue for centuries with unborn generations programmed to carry on the fight. The same understanding of how fighting weakens us and generates more imbalance in our lives is applicable to our experience with addictions. We can become addiction-free relatively quickly if we can make a decision to eliminate fighting and conquering from our efforts, overcoming blunder-filled thinking. For those of you who may not be familiar with my friend Ram Dass, in the late 1960s, he helped shape the awakening consciousness of an entire generation with his bestseller, Be Here Now. One of my favorite Ram Dass stories is the one he tells about an early encounter with Neem Karoli Baba, his guru in India. Ram Dass brought some capsules with him to India that were designed to dramatically alter one's state of consciousness. Neem Karoli Baba confronted Ramdas about these pills and asked him to give all of them to him. Ramdas thought that he brought a long-term supply of this very powerful psychedelic substance. Yet he watched in horror and amazement as this enlightened being swallowed all of them right before his eyes with no visible reaction. His guru then asked him if he had any more, since these obviously weren't working. After telling this story, Ramdas concluded with one of his most sagacious observations. If you're already in Detroit, he observed, then you don't have to take a bus to get there. Addictions of every description are vehicles that people board in order to get someplace higher, more pleasurable, more peaceful, more tuned in and turned on, and so on. But if you're already aligned with this energy, then it's obviously unnecessary to climb aboard any vehicle headed to a place where you currently reside. The pattern goes something like this. We must have more and more of what we desire. The more of it we take or imbibe, the more we need. The less effective it is as we consume more. Then, to top off this huge imbalance, what we're using to get to this place of bliss is toxic to our well-being. The addiction is increasing our imbalance. Our desire is for bliss, peace, love, health, freedom, and so on. But the addictive behavior gives us precisely the opposite. If it goes unchecked, it will wreak havoc on our body and mind and ultimately destroy us. I'm essentially addiction-free, and I want you to know that I didn't get to this place by fighting my addictive nature. In fact, the more I tried to conquer addictions at various stages of my life to things such as sugar, soda, caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, and certain drugs, the more they'd gain a foothold on me. Force, counterforce. I'd apply my weapons, and they'd bring out their artillery with my body as the battleground where the war was being waged. I was blundering my way into deeper addiction. Earlier, I quoted Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, "The remedy for all blunders is love." How would things be different if we followed his advice? The two key words here are blunder and love. Let's examine them closely. Blunder. Why call an addiction a blunder? Demanding more and more of something your body and mind vehemently despise is an addiction. Choosing the lopsided world of addiction over the equilibrium that is your spiritual heritage is a major distortion of your birthright. When you do that, you're mismanaging this life. This is something I strongly believe is a blunder that can be balanced with love. You originated from an invisible spiritual energy field of pure well-being. Your desire is to be balanced in that spirit in your thoughts and behaviors. Now, in this life, in this moment, in your bodily form, you want that harmony and sense that it's available without having to leave your body, or, in other words, die. So in that interpretation, you're seeking a balance that allows you to die while you're alive. You'll return to spirit, the non-form, upon your death, but you have the option of choosing to live in true enlightened balance or God realization. Now, in this physical state, your source doesn't create from toxicity. It doesn't fill your veins or your stomach or any part of you with poison or excess. It creates from well-being, balance, and effortless perfection. This is your spiritual heritage, and love can correct that blunders that distance. Love. Why is love the antidote to addictions? It's very simple. Because love is what you are. It's the center of your creation. It's your point of origination and can become your point of attraction as well. As Carl Menninger told his parents, his patients, and anyone else who was suffering and willing to listen, love cures the one who receive love and the ones who give it too. In transcending your addictive habits, you have the opportunity to be both the giver and the receiver of the spiritual balm of love. As you apply it, you feel the balance returning to your life. You no longer pursue a counterfeit freedom, and you no longer attract what you don't want. Instead, you seek the balance of being connected to your authentic nature. Reconnection to well-being. Our proclivity toward addictive behavior subsides measurably as we begin to practice reconnecting to our source of being. Many books have been written on the subject of overcoming addictions. There are countless rehabilitation programs and centers to help those who are caught in the grip of drugs, alcohol, food, caffeine, sex, gambling, or something else that fits the description of chasing after what we don't want. I support any program designed to help people escape this imbalanced cycle that is such a destroyer of lives. My contribution here is a brief description of the key points I found extremely useful in becoming an addiction-free person. The following 5 thoughts helped interrupt my out-of-balance thinking and behavior. Practice with honesty and integrity. They can contribute to a new sense of empowerment and well-being that allows you to be free of unwanted addictions. It's all about realignment. This is number 1 because when you really practice it, you never want to pursue what you don't want at the expense of what you do want. You long to be in harmony and you desire well-being. You came from well-being, so you simply need to choose thoughts that align with that foundation to find your way back into alignment. Practice praying silently as a steady background whenever and wherever you can. Personalized and varied prayers such as this example derive from St. Francis' prayer. Make me an instrument of thy well-being. See yourself always summoning the energy of well-being from your spiritual source. Think like an animal who would never think of pursuing what it doesn't want. Love your addictions. If it's food, love it. If it's cocaine, love it. If it's painkillers, love them. If it's cigarettes, love them. These are some of your greatest teachers. They've taught you through direct experience what it is that you no longer wish to be. They've taken you to the depths for some reason. This is an intelligent system you're part of. There are no accidents in a universe supported by omniscience and omnipotence. Be grateful to these teachers. If you hate them, curse them, and attempt to fight these addictions, you tip the balance towards hatred and fighting. You then continue to chase after what you don't want because you're in a weakened state. Fighting weakens, love empowers. So tip the scale toward love. Be grateful for the addictions that have taught you so much. Send them a blessing. Send them a silent blessing. By doing so, you shift toward the love that you are. Love yourself. This is the natural outgrowth of choosing to love your addictions. Think of your body as a sacred temple and extend reverence as a form of love. Be aware of and grateful for every organ, every drop of blood, every appendage, every cell that constitutes your body, for your liver, your heart, and your brain. Just say, thank you, God, for this glorious gift. I treasure it, and with your help today, I will begin the process of loving it unconditionally. If you still feel attracted to substances that you despise, say this silent prayer before ingesting them. Love will ultimately become the added weight that rebalances your life. One of my favorite American poets, Henry W. Longfellow, tells us, "He that respects himself is safe from others. He wears a coat of mail that none can pierce." When we truly respect and love ourselves, it's as if we have a shield of flexible armor made of metal rings and loops of chain that protects us from the addictive other that's been a part of our life. Remove all shame. You've done nothing wrong. You haven't failed. You've only produced results. The question isn't about how bad you've been. It's about what you intend to do with the results you've produced. If you opt for shame and guilt, you choose the one emotional reaction that will disempower you more than any other. Whatever your present moment status in relation to your addictions, it's all perfect. You had to go through the traumas you went through. You had to disappoint the people you've mistreated. You had to get this far down. You needed this out of balance energy in order to aid you in generating the energy to get you to the higher place where you're now headed. You're still a divine being in the eyes of God, despite any weaknesses that you feel are incongruous with God's love. You needed all of those experiences, And now that you are contemplating leaving them behind and rejoining your spiritual source of well-being, shame will only hamper you and send you back to that absurdly imbalanced world where you never get enough of what you don't want. Live from a new knowing. Finally, create a space within yourself, somewhere very private that only you and God are privy to. In this inner space, post the words, I know. This is your invisible connection to God, where purity and well-being define your new addiction-free self. Regardless of how many people distrust you and remind you of how many times in the past you failed to live up to your promises, this is your space of knowing. As an ancient Hindu saying reminds us, God gives food to every bird, but he doesn't throw it into the nest. Realign with God and fly without the weight of addiction. I promise you that being in balance and free of addiction is much more exhilarating. And that is the end of chapter 4 of Wayne Dyer's Being in Balance, 9 Principles for Creating Habits to Match Your Desires. This is Linda G. Robert. You're back in the groove again, coach, helping you live your best life right now so you can love what you do. Stay tuned for chapter 5. Bye now.